Today's reading is from Revelations chapter 21, verses 1 to 14, and John chapter 20, verses 19 to 23. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." And he carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together, with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." And with that, he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." This is the word of the Lord.
There we go. I don't want that bit yet. Here we go. Okay, so we're sorted. So as you know, we're in the middle of this series of what on earth is the church about? And it's a really good question. And it's a question, I think if we're honest, we've probably all asked ourselves over the course of our Christian walk, probably a number of times. And over the last few weeks, we've had some answers to that question. What is the church about? Well, it's called to be one, united in Jesus. It's called to be holy, set apart like Jesus. It's called to be a universal church, reflecting the unchanging nature of the God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And it's called to be an apostolic church, sent out by Jesus and for Jesus. And that's where we pick up this morning. What does it mean to be an apostolic church? There's my question. Okay, so an apostle is just somebody who is sent out. The first apostles, Peter, James, John, and the rest of the disciples were sent by Jesus. Naveen read it for us in John 20. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. And if this line here it is, represents the whole of history, and if we have God at the beginning and God at the end, the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end, then at this very particular moment in history, if it'll work, there it is, this very particular moment in history, that somewhere around there, we have, as the Father has sent me, I am sending you. And I wonder why Jesus appeared to his disciples at this moment and said that to them. And the reason I think partly is because they were in a locked room at the time. There it is. Okay? It's almost like he appears to them to say, nah, you've not got this right, guys. You're not supposed to be hiding inside. You're not supposed to have the doors locked for fear of the Jews. Get out of the box. As Will said last week, God is a God of movement. We have been moving along that line since the beginning. And we as the church are part of a great tradition, which is to make manifest the character and the presence of God out there in the world. As Revelation 21 tells us, we're heading for a time when the dwelling of God will be with man. Here's my little picture. Is it going to come up? Here we go. There it is. The dwelling of God will be with man. He will be our God and we will be his people and we will live together. We're heading for that. But at this point, the disciples are there in their locked room. They haven't caught on to that idea yet. And I find it quite funny that the disciples really don't seem to get what Jesus is saying to them, because later in the chapter, he pops up again, and where are they? They're in the locked room. They're back there, the doors are locked again. Maybe it's more comfortable there. Maybe they feel safe there. Maybe they're not challenged there. But Jesus' instruction to them and to us is quite clear. Go. So what is the church for? It's to spread the good news of Jesus. And this raises all kinds of questions. And I just had a little think. What questions does this bring up? Pete, we're going to have to get another clicker. Here we go. Point it that way. Yeah. There we go. There's my questions. So I started to think, right, what does it mean to be an apostolic church? And this is the list that kind of came first into my head and fitted on my slide. So I got, who am I sent to? And where should I go? And what do I do? And what should I say? And how often should I go? And do you have a map? And when should I schedule this into my to-do list? Okay, I'm a busy lady. I have a lot of things going on, so I need to get it down and it needs to be scheduled. And I don't really have answers to any of those questions. Sorry. So I went back to that age-old question, which we always seem to fall back on, which is this one. What did Jesus do? He called the disciples out of the locked room. He travelled through life, and it was as he travelled that he shared the good news. He was tired and thirsty, and he sat down at a well where he met a Samaritan woman. Is it going to come up? My first little dot. Here is Jesus. Nope. Never mind. Let's just leave it. Oh, there we go. There he is. He's sitting down at a well, meeting a Samaritan woman. I should point out at this point, there is no way that my map is accurate, okay? This is just a visual representation. I have no idea if that is where Jesus met the Samaritan woman, but we'll pretend that it is. He was on his way to see Jairus' poorly daughter when a woman touched his cloak and was healed. And somewhere there's going to be another red spot. There it is. He was crossing the lake with his disciples, sleeping in the back on a cushion when a terrible storm sprang up, and they woke him terrified to calm the wind and the waves. It was as he travelled that he shared the good news of the kingdom of heaven. There's going to be another spot. There we go. Who was Jesus sent to? The people who happened to be there at the time. Some people are sent to a very specific place and or a very specific people group, and that's an act of discernment. But most of us are just sent to the people around us. As an Anglican church, we share the cure of souls or the spiritual care of the people in the parish. There are 30,000 people in this parish. Who are we sent to? We're sent to them. So, going back, there they are. Going back to the how do I do this? The question that it raises in me is, well, what have I got to offer? And I asked this question to a very wise and a very dear friend who very bluntly said to me, you take them to the feet of Jesus. You don't take them to the feet of Claire. It's not about you. It's about him. What have I got to offer? Jesus. I have a friend who's been facing infertility for a number of years. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any personal experience to share with her. I can't do anything for her. But I can, and I have, walk with her through her struggles and pray for her and for her husband. For years, all I've been able to do is listen and pray and tell her I'm praying and share with her the story of some other friends of ours who faced the same difficulties and had to undergo the same treatment and now have 3 beautiful children. As I prayed for their conception and pregnancy and birth, I'm now praying for my friends. She's 7 weeks pregnant. I haven't done anything. God has done everything. Who am I sent to? I'm sent to her. So as a sent people, what do we have to offer? Jesus. Like Will said last week, the answer is Jesus. And that's not as tangible a response as some of us, myself included, would like. 2 Corinthians talks about us as the aroma of Christ. We're to spread the fragrance of the knowledge of him. You can't pin down a smell. You either carry it or you don't. So all my questions about how am I sent to people and who do I go to are just the wrong questions. The only question really is, how can I smell more like Jesus? How can people say of me, as they said of Peter and John in Acts 4, surely these men have been with Jesus? We can't be a sent people if we're not soaked in the presence and the character and the hallmarks of the one who sends us. It's not enough to be a nice person. It's not enough to do good deeds. What is the church for? It's for carrying the life of Jesus into the world, for making manifest the character and the truth of Christ into a world that is aching for some good news. And how does that start? It starts with us opening our hearts and lives to the Holy Spirit and saying, "Here I am, Lord, send me." We can stay inside if we want, with the doors locked for fear of the Jews or whatever else. But now, the dwelling of God is out there with human beings. The temple curtain has been torn in two. The cat is out of the bag. Elvis, as they say, has left the building. To be an apostolic church means we have to embody and carry the presence and the love of Jesus wherever we go. I think it sounds fun.